You know, it's made a huge difference. I'll tell you an interesting story. It was an ethical choice at first, but within a month, and I found it pretty easy to do, I had a family that went vegan. I'd never heard the word. I was vegetarian, but not vegan. And I'm married to a retired dentist, and we both have a real commitment to stay healthy because we realize that's going to limit the quality of our life, and so it's a gift we give each other. But I went to visit this family in Seattle that were vegan and ate vegan 4 days, and when I learned about it and the impact on my health, animals, and the environment, I thought, gee, I want to give that gift back and take that gift for myself. Well, within the first month, I had no migraines. This is 13 years ago. I've had no migraines since then. I used to have monthly, and they were debilitating. I have no sinus problems or sinus headaches or drainage if I'm vegan. It was getting off the dairy and cheese and all that. I have no symptoms from rheumatoid arthritis, which I've had since a child and which terribly deformed and crippled my mother. So that's wonderful. If I get careless, and you noticed our creme brulee, I had a very tiny little bit. I can't fudge much or my joints swell and it'll stay there about 4 days. But the shocking thing happened. I used to kind of have a, you know how you set ground rules for yourself. Well, my ground rule was I would eat clean 99% of the time, but when I was in a special circumstance, I just live like the natives. And Margaret Mead was carried extra weight because that was part of her work. You know, she, whatever the people she was with were eating, she ate. And of course, eating abundantly is one of the ways you affirm your host. But so anyway, I had this work I was going to do in Holland. I'd never been to Holland. I went 2 days early so I wouldn't be impacted by jet lag or to try to lessen that. And I loaded up on cheese and chocolate and coffee. I mean, Dutch food is not vegan. Vegan is no animal products. So it's no cheese or eggs or milk or fish or meat or any of that. So it's very different. If you're in Holland or Copenhagen, you can almost, I mean, it's a real challenge to eat vegan. But at any rate, then I did 3 days of an intense conference with a very high-profile client group. Most of them were presidents internationally, and they were tough and in your face, and I had to really be grounded and not be adversarial. I need to slow down and think and ask good questions and help them slow down and take a deep breath. And so, you know, if you're facilitating this room of what is it, the alpha male is what I'm trying to think of. They were all alpha males. You got a tough challenge. Well, it was, by the time I started, after having 48 hours of, quote, rich food, it was like I was drunk. It was not, I didn't slur my words, I don't mean that, but my mind was moving in slow motion. Words didn't come, I couldn't compute what was happening. It horrified me. And needless to say, I wasn't at my best, and I suffered so, realizing that, you know, I thought to myself, I'd never show up drunk. I'd never even have a glass of wine, because it hits me quicker than most people. I can slur my words with one glass of wine, so I wouldn't do that when I was working because it would impair my judgment. I thought, why in the world would I choose to eat in such a way that I lost my mental flexibility and my mental energy? So that kind of click, okay. And then maybe 2 years later, I was in New York City, which I dearly love. And again, I kind of fell off my good intentions and just enjoyed whatever we were eating in New York, which was not vegan, and then went to New Orleans to do a conference. The same thing happened. And that, I'm a slow learner. I was remedial, it took twice. But probably most people don't have that experience. And as I became vegan, it was slow. So I never noticed the difference. But now it's so clear to me, and it's, you know, like, is a brownie worth slow motion?
Right.
Well, it kind of depends. You know, if it's Christmas and I'm not going back to work again, maybe I would be tempted, but I've still got my family around me, and I'm discovering that for me to have patience and a clear mind and a clear intuition is a lot more important than the junk food. And I'm guessing like the same might be true if you meditate, because it takes a while to really learn to slow your mind down and clear it, that if you have had the discipline to meditate repeatedly, that you then notice the difference if you get sucked back into frenzy and you don't calm yourself. I do know that if I'm traveling and I stop exercising, my thinking is not as clear. And so finding some way to take long walks is critically important. But in that I learned the way to break the addiction, because it is a sugar addiction and a caffeine addiction and a fat addiction, which I certainly look into easily, that instead of bullying the addiction or saying, shame on you, Ann, you shouldn't eat that, how terrible you are, which is the old way. The new way is just, if you're going to sin, sin bravely. If you're going to eat the brownie, eat it. But then notice what changes. And that would be servant leadership, where you're fully aware and you freely make choices. And when you stop bullying yourself, part of servant leadership, I believe, is be gentle with yourself. When I have the clarity to not bully myself, but simply notice and be at choice. Stephen Covey talked about you separate out the action and the response. So you pull that apart and say, how do I feel about the decision I just made? What can I learn from it? And what do I take from this forward? Everything changes, because the bullying and shaming